I would like to call to order this October 14th, 2025 meeting of the Natrona County Planning and Zoning Commission. First order of business is Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So next is consideration of the minutes from August 12th, 2025. And if memory serves me, we didn't have a meeting in last month, September. So this would be the most recent meeting, August 12th, 2025, to consider minutes for. If the board had a chance to review the minutes, and if so, entertain a motion for consideration.
I'll make a motion to consider the minutes.
To approve them as written.
To approve as written.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as prepared. Any discussion? All right, all in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Hearing none. Minutes are approved as prepared. By the way, were we expecting Commissioner Christopherson tonight? Haven't heard. All right, so we don't have any public, so it's just us chickens here. Sabrina, next on the agenda is no public hearings tonight, although I understand we do have one for November that we weren't anticipating having a meeting in November, but now we are. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we moved that meeting. That meeting would have been on Tuesday, November 11th, which we are closed that day because that's Veterans Day. So with this update of the amendments for the 2022 zoning resolution, we pushed that to the following week, which is actually on Wednesday, the 19th, because the commissioners have their meeting on Tuesday, the 18th. And do we believe we'll have a quorum for that?
What's you guys' availability for that? Yes, it is. Okay. I plan to be here, so there's your quorum. There's 3 right there. Ray, you don't know?
I can.
Okay. So it sounds like we have a quorum, as you were concerned about. So I guess the big deal tonight is consideration of the amendments to the 2022 zoning resolution. So from the looks of it, you've got a big presentation for us.
Ready?
I'm ready, I guess, if you guys
All
are.
right, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, thank you for joining us tonight. This is the proposed amendments to our current 2022 zoning resolution. So why are we doing this? So this was implemented in December of 2022, and then after going through the motions, through some planners and some attorneys and staff, it was noticed that there were some contradictions, some confusion, and just some things that kind of need to just be adjusted. When you go through a major change like that, a lot of times there are those little things that need to be adjusted, and so this was the time to do it. We did determine that a complete overhaul wasn't needed. As you'll see, the amendments are pretty minor for the most part. We'll touch on a couple things that the commission talked about last week at their meeting. But otherwise, we felt that a zoning resolution text amendment was the way to go for this, even though there are 8 pages of lists of adjustments. A lot of them are not major adjustments. So what will this accomplish? So this is just one of the things that's in the document. One of the diagrams that we adjusted, it seemed a little bit confusing. The other diagrams where it looked like you couldn't build on part of the property. Well, this is just showing the setbacks on what you can do. So most of the amendments, like I said, are just kind of wording, clarification, redundancy, and correcting some minor spelling and grammar words. And last I checked, we lived in Wyoming, and one of the places said state of Idaho. So that was one of the corrections that we made, just something that was overseen from last time. So a disclaimer, in the interest of transparency, the next 358 slides will detail every diminutive and or substantial change suggested, mentioned, thought about, contemplated, changed, rechanged, added, deleted, re-added, redeleted, and completely dismissed through the past few years since the inception of the 2022 resolution.
So could I ask a question? Can we
Yes.
talk about this as we go? That
Yeah.
previous slide. You mentioned there's been a lot of turnover in your position. So has somebody been keeping track of this?
Yes, so Mr. Chairman, when I came to this position, I had different stacks of papers, binders, notes, sticky notes, those little tabs, highlighters, notes on different forms. Some of them I knew where they came from because Dave North had given me like his notes that he put in a spreadsheet. Other ones, I know Jared had some papers on his desk that the attorneys gave me. I had other areas that other planners I knew had written. Some things I didn't know where they came from. If it didn't make any sense and I couldn't clarify, I kind of was like, ask people like commissioners, staff, attorneys, does this make sense? So like a couple of the comments were like, R1 and R2 and SR1 and SR2. There's a comment like, what's the difference? Because there was no difference. So a lot of different areas it came from.
So individual commissioner, Dave North, is that the other commissioners input as well, or he's our liaison, right?
Since he is our liaison, yeah. So he was the most common one that I spoke with, just because he is our liaison. But when I was interviewing for the position, that was one of the things that they wanted me to do and concentrate on immediately, was getting these kind of updated and changed. So they all in one meeting said, we want you to concentrate on this. So. Okay, the entertainment. So the next 3 slides, I did, as you are aware, the actual document has 8 pages worth of those, changes. The next 3 slides are just some highlights from that and some of the things that I thought might be the bigger changes. Because no, I do not have 358 slides because I'm not that patient to put 358 slides together. I thought it'd be funny. And I did get Dallas on it because he actually didn't hear me say I was kidding. And so he thought that we needed snacks and stuff. But no, I just was trying to spice it up because this might not be the most interesting thing. So first thing, so added Appendix 3. So wireless communications was in sections 4 and 5. And it was almost equally split between 4 and 5. We've gotten several minor modification documents, applications. We have currently have a new cell tower in front of us, an application that we're working through. You'll probably see at the November meeting, but as we're doing our pre-application meeting, we're flipping back and forth through. And we're like, okay, this is silly because it doesn't make any sense. We're trying to find this and trying to find that. And it just didn't work. And so actually that was one of the specific things that I talked to Dave about. And he's like, just put it in an appendix, put it all in an appendix. And then it's all in the same document, same area, and you just reference the appendix. Appendix 2 was actually in the current document. It just wasn't listed in the table of contents. Diagrams, I guess we saw earlier, was updated for clarity. The PUD section was the same thing as wireless communications. There's 2 different sections that you had to reference. So we put these together in one section. Removed the landscaping area. Landscaping was fairly short area. It was suggested from the commissioners to get rid of this because we're in the county. We're not in the city. We don't really kind of regulate landscaping. It's more buffers for light industrial to residential, and the buffers and the screening with like different lots, different industrial areas is more pertinent to the county than landscaping. On the signs area, the changeable copy section was removed. We changed off-premise signs to billboard. At no point I met with a couple of different sign manufacturers, installers in town, because they kept seeing this off-premise sign word. And I was like, isn't that a billboard? What does that mean? Do you use this terminology in your industry? And no, they don't. So there's a place we just changed it to billboard on the actual headline of it. It does still say off-premise sign in some areas, but it says off-premise sign or billboard to make sure it's all just consistent. So the Industrial Siting Council. So I was asked to put this in by some of the commissioners. We'll go over this a little bit more in detail later. For some of the stuff they wanted to say, they wanted projects that have to go to ISC first, not come locally first. We actually don't want to do that after reading through state statute. If it goes to ISD and we don't have our say locally, then we miss our opportunity to enforce any of our local county regulations. So one of the things specifically that we do locally is one of our notice things is even before they do, it's part of the pre-application, is so they pick their piece of land and then they have to notify within 1 mile all of the residences in that mile, and then they have to notify within 20 miles every city, town, entity, whatnot. So if we didn't have that in there, if we went to ISD first, we would forfeit those kinds of local regulations that we don't want to be able to forfeit. We want to make sure that we keep our local regulations pertinent to our county that we want. But like I said, we'll talk about that a little bit more later. Provide a clause where BOCC can approve CUPs for the betterment of the county. There was not this clause in there, but I think there's been something recently, or maybe not even recently, but commissioners asked about this, like if it's for the betterment of the county, for the health and welfare and safety of the county, that they are able to approve certain ones. Do you want to talk about anything on that slide before we go to the next? We're good? Okay. Don't get sleepy yet. We're not ready yet. So I highlighted the top one, the table of allowable uses. So I specifically took out the current table, and then I put a proposed table in there. So in the hopes that it was easier to compare the two. So when the major changes on that was taking out R1 and R2 and making them one, just RR, SR1 and SR2 and making it SR, because there's no difference in either one of those. Some things changed from P to ZC. One of those things specifically, short-term rentals. If you read in the chart, it said that's permitted, except that when you read the verbiage down below on what you have to do for short-term rentals, it specifically states that you need a zone certificate. So there's no reason it should say a P when that's not really the case. So things like that got changed. And that's why I highlighted that specifically as well, because I know we got a big audience here and everything, but if like somebody, wanted to go through both of those, because this was a sticking point last fall we know of with the C that was in the MR1 under extractive industries. With that being a sticking point, I wanted to try and make sure that if there's something in there that we changed or whatever that, is going to be a big deal, let's look at it, let's talk about it. And it's highlighted, hopefully easy to look at. So I'm hoping this gets looked at, but created a commercial storage section. So we've had this summer, for some reason, had like 3 or 4 different people come in asking if they have a lot that's in the county. They want to rent it out to like RV storage, camper storage, boat storage, not looking to build a building. It's either fenced in or they're going to fence it in, and they just want to rent their lot out. We had nothing that addressed that it was allowed anywhere. So we created this section to specifically address this type of area. LI, we removed LI from the adult entertainment establishments. So we did this because it said it was permitted, except we've never seen an adult entertainment establishment who didn't have a bar or a lounge, and bars and lounge are not allowed in LI. So that was a contradictory part. They were like, okay, well, then we can't have adult entertainment in LI if it's not permitted to have bars, because people don't do that sober. Sorry, they just don't. Yeah. Yes, that's what it is in LI. That is not allowed. So we were consistent. We changed it to be consistent with what was already in the chart. And then changed so it was 1,000 feet. They had to be 1,000 feet from schools and religious. And then there's some other things. There were like 4 or 5 different things. I don't have room to list them all out, but and changed it to 2,500 feet. Updated definition. So brewery, distillery, and winery. That was the title of this section, but it only addressed wineries. So kind of changed some of that definition, some of those wording to, I think it was like malt beverages is kind of the overall that addresses all of it.
Question.
Yes.
So back to the previous bullet, talking about the 1,000 feet to 2,500 feet.
Right.
Do you have an example you're going by to make that change, or who said let's don't use 1,000, let's use 2,500?
I believe one of the commissioners requested it. Some of this stuff, I can honestly tell you, I have no rhyme or reason behind any of it. Some of it was because it's more common to have one distance than another.
Well, as a general question, though, did you have a template of zoning apparatus that you went by here, or?
So some of it,
I'm asking this is because that C that was on the mining
right.
that we had several months ago, where did that come from? Nobody asked. Where'd 1,000, where'd 2,500 come from?
Right. So
You said. So I wonder.
I believe it was. Some of it I researched like us as staff, we researched like other counties, and we stayed in Wyoming for the most part. There's a couple things that I went nationwide because I wanted to know like what's the most common thing nationwide. A lot of it was like Laramie County. Other counties are more similar to us, like Laramie County, Sheridan County, Albany County. I did look at Teton County a little bit, but I was like, they're kind of a lot different. Didn't really look at Niobrara, be honest with that. But I mean, they don't have zoning anyway, but just kind of tried to compare different things based on like, is this unrealistic? Is this realistic? What do other people have? What's the most common? It was different.
Sounds like a tremendous amount of work.
Well, this is what I've been doing since May, so.
Not very long to do all that.
Honestly, I don't remember exactly where that came from, but I can research that if you guys are. I mean,
I suspect there's a lot of that in here.
now I'd like to know. Moving on, are we at extractive industries? That's right. Okay. Okay, so extractive industries. So it said they may require a minimum of 5 mile buffer between mineral extraction site and residential areas as determined by the VOCC. This we'll talk about later as well because we changed that 5 mile thing. So we'll talk about that later.
But word may is always a problem.
So we'll talk about that later. So yeah, and that actually wasn't the problem. But okay, so then nuclear, which as of yesterday is not an issue anymore at the moment, anyway. But there was no reference in the entire document to nuclear, so we added it to the heavy industrial, which we still weren't positive that we assumed, it might be under the heavy industrial area. It was not addressed anywhere in a regulation, so you can look at that 2 ways. You can look at it as it's not in a regulation, so it's not permitted, or it's not in our regulation, so you can do whatever you want. So we're like, well, if we address it, then we can say it's got to comply with state and federal regulations. All of that, it does just say state and federal. All of this is our local regulations, so all this has to comply with our local regulations as well. So it was just a simple, let's just address it. And then we can make those determinations within our county on that. Flammable storage of flammable and combustible liquids. It just didn't say anything about international fire codes, so you just added that it has to comply with international fire codes. Anything on this slide you want to talk about for one of the next?
I guess I didn't hear your question. Right. What was your question again?
A few months ago, we addressed.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman and Commissioner, this is specifically defined by, I believe it's DEQ, International Fire Codes, and there is a specific definition. So our section that's in here, where it has like the 500 and then the 12,000 and the 15,000, those are specifically written in, and I looked it up when I was looking through this, and I forget exactly which code it is, but that verbiage is exactly the same. So that's where that came from. But like I said, I don't remember exactly what document, if it's a fire code or if it's DQ or exactly what it is, but
Sabrina, we just double checked. It is defined in fire code.
okay. So,
I thought it was, but yeah, we just double checked it.
okay, thank you.
International fire codes, we have solar there's concern about whether or not the fire department having an international fire code, does that change something project like that? Are they stricter, I guess, international fire codes?
So, Mr. Chairman and Mr. McNutt, we always have to comply with fire code because those are adopted. It's same with our building codes. So like our building codes currently are 2021 building codes are going to be changed into 2024 soon. You always have to comply with those. Those aren't, those are more federal regulations. We don't really get to pick like, no, we're good. If the state said they didn't want to comply with that, they can generally do that. I don't know if they can do that with all of them. And then we can adopt the state regulations, but those are not optional. No, we threw this in there because it wasn't addressed previously. And it's just one of those things like, well, if it's not addressed, then I can do it. Well, that's then you have to interpret it with, attorneys, and they have to fight for or against whatever it is. But if it's addressed, then we can say, hey, we have to comply with this. It's not just like a given, I guess. So, and yes, I'm still talking, but just for a little bit longer. Like I think I mentioned earlier, so that we rearranged wind and solar sections to combine in one spot because they were in two different sections once again, so you had to flip back and forth to figure out what you needed to do. Define meteorological tower. So I'm gonna ask you guys, what is a meteorological tower? What do you think of when you think of a meteorological tower?
Dylan Riverton, that's a big ball on top of a building.
Like a radar. The ones I know of aren't real high. They're not really big towers.
So this actually said that it was a wind tower.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, so I expanded on the definition per state statute and per, I think, Webster's dictionary that says what a meteorological tower is, because wind towers are separate. They're different. So meteorological towers provide other information, not just wind. Some of them are powered by wind and some of them also provide wind, but it's not just a wind tower. So just stuff like that. It's just cleanups. So CUP, we added an extension provision. There was not currently an extension where that really addressed like how you can get an extension. So let's take COVID for instance, and things got backed up because of COVID. Well, you have a 12-month window for a CUP, and if you don't get it started, then this allows you to come back and be like, hey, my project isn't going as fast as it was, or a company got bought out, but we still want to do this. Can we get a 12-month extension? Whatever. It does say that you may have to come back to PNZ and BOCC, but it's not a requirement that you have to come back. It will be situational. So, zoning certificate requirements for accessory structures was changed. So, what's in the current regulation, it says over 125 square feet for commercial and over 200 square feet for residential. So we changed that to be consistent at 225 square feet for everything. Nonconformities, we added a provision to replat lots where new buildings would cross property line boundaries. So this will provide for less nonconformity. It also cleans up our maps. So in the Allendale area, over close to the municipal golf course, in this area, there are several lots there's a lot of half-acre lots, a lot of buildings built across it, which really never should have happened because it never should have been approved because the setbacks are not met if you're building across lot lines. But this allows us to clean some of that up and make them replat and get the right setbacks, so we don't have half of a building over here and half of a building over here. So it's kind of just a cleanup thing as well. Rural addressing, so it wasn't really kind of with rural addressing, and it may require structures to be addressed. So sometimes we'll have a house out on a ranch, and then they're building a barn that's half a mile away from the house. If something happens at that barn and they need emergency services, and the only address they have is that house, we want to be able to address another place on that facility, so that we're at this barn, but it's half a mile from the house, so good luck finding us. We want to make sure that we can get emergency services there if we need to. So Appendix 2, we removed some nuisance issues for unused and less regulations within the county. So one of the things that was in there addressed barking dogs, and it said barking dogs at the property line. I bet we can go outside right now and probably hear 3 or 4 barking dogs. Are they a nuisance? Probably not. But you can happen to hear them off of the property line. So it's quite restrictive for county regulations. So some minor things like that. And we got with code enforcement just to say, what do you use and what do you not use? What have you never used? There's a couple things in there. She's like, I don't even know what this means. There was some electromagnetic something. There was one thing that basically reminded me of a welder, because it said like some kind of basically laser lights in your eyes. that kind of makes no sense to have in this kind of regulation, because it's literally like welding. Like, I don't know who's going to weld it. You're going to see it off the property line first off. And it was just kind of an odd thing in there. And then chapter 6 definitions. So a lot of these things are updated and added, which was like the Telecommunications Act said, see Telecommunications Act. Okay, where am I supposed to find that at? Well, I mean, I'm going to Google it, except that why can't we not put a definition of Telecommunications Act? So we put the definition, said, as defined by the Telecommunications Act. So little things like that, that was like, hey, go look at it over here. You know, go find it over here. I'm like, yeah, no. So we just kind of cleaned that stuff up. Okay, and so this is just some approval criteria just to kind of go over just, that's why we did the zone resolution text amendment. It's not all doom and gloom. I want to make sure you guys know this is not doom and gloom. This is to help us all. But these are the approval criteria that's in our regulation. Didn't change anything here. We didn't see the need to change anything here. Okay, so some items addressed in BOCC. So two of their main points that they wanted us to come back to, and so they wanted us to redo the terminology in the Wyoming Industrial Siting Council. So as I said, I originally had said that a couple of commissioners wanted it to go to ISC first and then come to us. And then after reading through the entire state statute for the ISD, which is 35-12, if you want to know, and you want to read through that, that's what it is, that governs Wyoming Industrial Siting Council. Towards the bottom is where it has the local jurisdiction that says, after it's gone through this entire process, the ISD, local jurisdictions have no more say over it once the permit is approved through ISD. So there are multiple opportunities through the ISD process that allows for local entities. So it wouldn't just be us, it'd probably be Casper, Mills, Evansville, Barnett, who depend on where, you know, something was going, that we can go and comment. We can say, this is what we want you to enforce. But we have all of that through our regulations that we can have the project follow. And then we have our general application procedures that they also must follow, which is, it starts out with our pre-application and goes through the whole application process. It's pretty detailed, actually, in I think it's 503. So and then, so that we're taking this, so this is hot off the press. You guys are the first ones to see this one. So this is what we're taking back to BOCC next week, because they were sort of two sticking points that they discussed, is how we'll put it. The other thing was the extractive industries. So we changed this to, so the 5 mile thing. I don't know how the 5 mile got in there. They kind of talked amongst themselves. They think they remember 5 miles from something. We don't know where exactly that came from. They thought it was pretty restrictive when we got to talking about it. We're like, sitting right here, 5 miles from here is probably most of Casper. So that's probably pretty far distance. So we changed this terminology to say some operations may require a reasonable buffer between the mineral extraction site and residential areas as defined by the approval criteria as listed in the conditional use permit. So if there's something going on with this extractive industry, that it needs to have a buffer based on our conditional use permit and the approval criteria, there could be a reasonable buffer. So reasonable is always determined by an attorney and the judge and all of that. But Ashley approved this language, so that's where we went with it. So these, like I said, were the two sticking points for them, and what will be the only thing we'll be presenting back to them next week, because that's all they asked about, specifically were these two. And
I would assume that the driver for that, you called it a sticking point, is the gravel pit at the base of Casper Mountain that was proposed, that came here a year or so ago.
so the extractive industries, I believe, was, and that's why we're, like I said, the 5 mile thing, I don't know. That's something where we kind of talked about, so there's a gravel pit just over off of Wyoming Boulevard on the east side that pretty much nobody knows exists. If you look at it on a map, you can actually see it, but it's not intrusive to anything, and it's kind of like down in a little valley, so you really can't even see it. But it exists over there, and it's active. So it could be something that's over there, and it's in UA, I believe, but it's kind of like right at the base of the mountain. And
Be
then,
careful with that, because that deal out there, Coast Road was kind of down in a hole as well.
yes, and it's just kind of an extra little, that nothing was taken out of the CUP that would change that.
Okay.
So Thursday Game Point was the Industrial Siting Council, and they didn't want, a couple of them didn't want the go to ISD first. A couple of them one of them wanted this completely removed. Another one said either change the language or remove it, and two others said change the language. So, I mean, it was pretty vague. I'll be honest, it was very vague. And they were like, it doesn't make any sense. And so we went back and redid that language.
The legal got in the middle of that one.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Very much. Yeah.
But it does make sense. When I first saw this earlier when reviewing the stuff for tonight, I was thinking, God, if this goes through that whole process and then comes here, you almost feel like you're compelled to approve it. I mean, I would imagine it's an extremely elaborate process, the siting council.
Mm-hmm.
So, using the rights that we have as the county is going to be in this county, to have our first say. I think that totally makes sense. So, yeah, I'm glad you reworked that.
Yeah, one of the a couple of commissioners knew that Carbon County kind of sends their applications to ISD first, except that they're in the middle of the process the entire time. So they are in communication. So there are 19 different agencies specifically listed under 3512 that are the agencies that basically have to sign off on ISD projects. And so being in contact with these agencies, so I keep using Game and Fish because it's the only one that comes to mind for some reason. And so like Game and Fish, they're like, okay, so there's a pond over here that could be affected by it. There's a stream over here that could be affected by it. There's a corridor here. And so they're in communication with them to know what's going on the whole time. So, and I called Carbon County. I talked to one of the commissioners. I talked to their development director on how they do this process. And so they kind of guide me through like what they do and how, so they have their county offices. So like your road and bridge, your weed and pest, parks, whoever, health department, all the ones that need to be aware of it, need to comment on all this, are mapping, are just everything. And then they kind of go and make sure that they're in communication the whole time with the ISD agencies to work through it together. So it's kind of a concurrent application, but it also is approved, like the county has their say in it. So they said they found it to be, so they get rid of those fly-by-nighters that are just the ones. So there's apparently a lot of these, and I would never thought this would be a business deal, but there's these agencies that will get the permit and then they sell the permit. All they're doing is going to get the permit. They're going through the legwork to get the permit, and then they sell that permit to whoever else it is. And so they would rather have the people that are actually going to do the project get the permit instead of selling that to some other company that you don't know anything about that company now, because you've already awarded the permit to this person, and they, per state statute, can sell it to whoever they want. And now you haven't vetted that company because you vetted this company. So that was, and then you knew the fun had to end at some time. 358 slides, done. So if you want to schedule your 18 review hours, hour review session with us, then you're more than welcome to contact us. So I have a note. I'm going to look up that 1,000 to 2,500 foot thing and see where that came from. Are there other notes that Anything else you have questions on that I can not answer, but look up later and get back with you?
And it just seems like, and I'm sure you're probably already doing this, having a spreadsheet or something that where you're tracking, where these things came from. Like the chairman was saying, when it comes up later, like the C, that mysterious C that just sort of appeared. Yeah, covering your bases.
Yeah, that's, we didn't have anyone at the commission meeting that wanted to hear me talk, and we clearly have room full of people who want to hear me talk tonight. So I don't know if they're waiting for, I know a couple people did think that we were doing public hearing last week. We specifically put in the notice that a presentation would be to BOCC last week to you guys tonight. And then the public hearing November and December, just because I wanted to get this out in front of everyone. Wanted to go over it, wanted to kind of hit the highlights. I want to say we're not actually moving that much stuff. It's, and this, I'm going to be really clear too with the commissioners. I was talking to Dave earlier today, and this is, there's probably going to be things that we missed, in this. Like, we're trying our best, but there's probably going to be things after this that we missed that we're going to have to go maybe a year from now or whatever and be like, oh, we just need to change this, or we just need to change that. We're trying.
Is that something that could be put into the plan? Is that the right thing to do, to have like an annual review of these things that got missed and need to be looked at, as long as they're not substantive, massive changes to the.
So I anticipate that as we work through this new document, what I'm hoping is our new document come December, then we will have been working through this, and we will probably note changes that we're like, ooh, that we didn't think about, or an application comes to us and we're like, oh, you can't do that there. But wait a minute, you could do that before. Or did we change something? Did we miss something? Or somebody comes up and wants to change the C or take away the C because something we didn't anticipate. I'd rather this be kind of more of a living document that we can, and that's why we have the text amendment thing as well, because that's what this is the process for a text amendment and how we go through a text amendment so we can do this. We don't have to have an entirely new document. Are you talking about the exceptions? Okay. And this, I know this came from one of the commissioners. I don't remember exactly. Because I feel like something maybe happened not recently, but not in the too far past, that it would have been good for the county to approve a CUP, but then they couldn't for some reason. So if it's the best thing for the county, that was where that came from. Do you think it's too vague? Is that wait?
Seems to
Is that a good thing? Are you saying okay?
So bring up big picture type stuff. You recall when this 2022 zoning rewrite was done, I think it was 10 or 15 years, every 10 or 15 years, the county has on its to-do list to completely rewrite the zoning document. Does that ring a bell?
So, Mr. Chairman, generally these documents are like 5 to 10 years.
Okay.
Uh,
10 to
plans,
15, 5 to 10.
yeah,
Okay.
kind of industry standard, except that things don't necessarily change in Wyoming that often. That's one of the things that we're kind of digging in and, looking at. That's like just a little minor changes that we're doing. Just because it's suggested every 5 to 10 years means generally 15 to 20. Even looking at our other regulations, so we have our development plan from 2016 and then our subdivision regulations from 2013. Even those things haven't changed a lot.
See.
So if it's needed, I would say, but it just doesn't. So to change, completely overhaul a document like this and have a consultant come in and do that, which is generally what happens, it's $120,000. So, to do that and then having the turnover that ended up happening throughout this document just made it kind of a requirement to do the updates we're doing now. I'd say it,
Every other year. Does that kind of eliminate having to total
I think it can, yes. And then as using this as our working document, and then as things happen, people come in like, why can't I do this? Or like with the commercial storage thing, if nobody had come in this summer asking about storing boats and RVs on an empty lot, and we didn't get them coming in until next summer after we've already approved all of this, and we're like, wait a minute, well, we missed that section. I mean, how many storage places can you think of right now? There's a lot in the city too, but a lot of people have boats and RVs that they can't store at their house. So they want to store them in a locked, gated area. Well, I have a lot over here. It ain't doing nothing with it, so why don't I rent it out? Let people store their stuff there, if that's what I want to do with it. But to not address that, that's the whole thing that comes back to it's not addressed, so it's not allowed, or it's not addressed, so I can do whatever I want. Like, well, why don't we just permit it and let people be able to use their land? It's trying to let them use, your land. Like, we don't want to be too restrictive because property rights, but at the same time, people want their neighbor to do stuff that they don't necessarily want to do themselves. That's why we have zoning.
Sabrina, if you mentioned this, I'm sorry, I missed it. What's the process going forward? So you're gonna present this to the BOCC. You said maybe next week or coming soon, and then does the public what is their opportunity to weigh in on the changes, even though they're not substantive? People like to have their say. So just curious what the process is.
Okay, so Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, we put out for public notice. We put this out for public notice, so it had to go out for a 45-day public notice, and it was released 2 weeks ago on September 30th. Was sent out the notice in the paper of public notices that you would generally see, and then there was the website. So this entire 234-page document that you all received is on our website for people to go to the website and look through the document. That's all live, has been for 2 weeks now. Our contact information is on the website. There is also on the homepage of the website, there's a banner on the top that says zoning resolution proposed text amendments. And there's a little button you can click read on, and then it takes you to the proposed, the notice for the proposed amendments. And then it's got projected dates on that site. So it has last week, I did this entire presentation to BOCC and then made a couple notes for the things that were their sticking points. And I said, so these are the things you want me to redo and come back with, correct? And they said yes. And I'm like, okay, come back in 2 weeks. And so we added that after that meeting to the website. At that time, even last week, this meeting was listed on the website, and then there's a link that you can go to the document. So the other two, so next week's meeting's added to it. So then the 19th for you guys was already added onto it, because the 19th is the actual public hearing for that, and then December 2nd is the actual public hearing for BOCC. So hopefully everything's good and you guys can vote on it in November, and then hopefully everything's good and BOCC can vote on it in December. So we're hoping to have it done by the end of the year. So if something happens with BOCC or with you guys, if it happens with you guys, then we're out till January, which is fine. But if everything's good with you guys, then we send it to BOCC on the 2nd. If something happens there and they want to table it, then our plan is to come back on the 16th and hopefully have anything resolved by then, and then they can approve it by then. That's the anticipated timeline, because I don't know that there's that many changes that will give anybody that much of a heartburn. But if there are, there are. This isn't something I wish to rush. This isn't something I anticipate going in the back room and changing last minute. If we have any changes we need to make, we need to table it and we'll come back next month. We'll come back at the next meeting. So it was a work session last week. It'll be a work session next week. It's not their meeting, so it's not their voting time that they're going to vote on it. They're not voting on anything for the time being. I do anticipate all of you voting on it. It will be voting for next month. Whether you table it or you vote approve, deny, whatever, that's where the public hearing comes in. So that's the anticipated timeline.
So you're not anticipating us moving on it or taking action on anything tonight?
No.
We're gonna wait till November.
Nope, this is strictly a presentation. And to get your feedback on, do you have any questions? If you do, I'll go research them, get back with you. If you have anything after this that you guys see that you missed tonight, that, or that came up that you're like, oh, I didn't see that, like, because I want to be real clear. I'm going to be real clear with the commissioners next week. Again, everything that I presented is not everything that we changed. I did not put 358 slides on here because I'm not doing 358 slides. It's all in the document. So make sure you look at that. Just because this is the only things I presented does not mean that's the only thing in the document.
Is that the actual number, 358 changes?
No, I made it up in my
Out
head.
of the air?
No, I actually put like 35, and I was like, that's not a high enough number, and so I put 358 because I just felt like it. I just threw that in. Just like I threw the 18-hour review session in here.
Obviously, there's a lot. I bet you spent more than 18 hours putting that together. I bet you spent more.
No, it's for the public to schedule 18 hours with us to
Talking
review
about
it.
staff time.
Oh,
I
yeah, we
can't
put way
imagine
more than
the
that.
time you guys put into
It's been since May. I've worked on this all summer. And there were times I had to step away and go do something else. Because it was a lot, but at the same time, like, I can tell you a lot about it, which I should be able to. So,
Anybody else have anything to bring up with Sabrina on this topic? Thank you for your hard work.
thank you.
All right, what else do you have for us tonight, Sabrina?
So, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, next month we anticipate, I talked to the lady with the cell tower today. It looks like they are pretty ready. We're waiting for a letter from the state because the property is out by Pathfinder. It is surrounded by BLM and state land. Their tower is 300-foot cell tower, and the current regulation says that the tower has to have a 1-to-1 fall, so it'd have to have a 600-foot setback. Cell towers that are built and have been built for the last several years have this fall technology, they call it, where it falls within 100 feet. And so they're asking for a variance for a 100-foot setback instead of 600 feet. We had, when I was sitting with you all last fall, we had 2 cell towers, one at Bossamer Bend, according to Sean, and one out by Midwest, that both were variance requests for similar so similar area out by, so it's called like Rattlesnake Range is the name of it. And I think they've got all their stuff together. So we're looking at probably having that for next month. And then there will be a major subdivision, one lot into two, but it's already been subdivided. So that's why it's a major subdivision. And I believe there was one, no, was that it? Zone change. Oh, and then a zone change that's currently tabled that we were going to request that you guys untable and deny, just to not have it on the table into the oblivion. So that's what we anticipate for next month at this time. I don't think there's anything else.
You guys have anything else for the good of the body tonight?
Can I back up and just ask one question? Let's bring up, I asked you about this and you tried to help me understand as we fail. 3.02, I asked you about that lighting on 3.02, page 33 of the document. In here, it talks about exterior lighting. I don't understand. When you talk about exterior lighting, the purpose of this section is to allow us for reasonable use of outdoor lighting, etc., and it improves the views of the night sky. And I don't know how any kind of lighting would improve the views of the night sky. That just doesn't seem awesome.
So, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Commissioner, I think what that's trying to say is if you have lighting that is so bright that you can't see the night sky, that's not what we're trying to go for. We're trying to make it not so bright. In some places, it has the candles, the luminous candles. I'm not sure exactly how you say that. Yes, so if you.
I'm sorry, the word improves, I'm just stuck on it. Maybe to not improve the view or detract from it, but you can't add light. Does that make sense?
Can you give me that section again? 3 point what?
It's A.
I will look
I know
at that.
it's just a minor thing, but
There's a lot of minor things, so that's what we're trying to clean up.
someone were trying to follow that, and they wanted to add lighting, they're not gonna improve the night.
I would agree with that, not to impede in the night view.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman, did we get a copy of the VOCC? You had a couple slides up. You had a couple slides from the commissioner's comments, items addressed from the VOCC. Could you send those to us unless I don't know that I have.
I believe it was just on this presentation, which you probably do not have. So I can send you this presentation if you guys like.
Send those to us,
Yes.
that would be helpful.
Thank you for catching that. That would be helpful. Make sure we're on the same page, right?
Yes.
Sure.
I would just add this comment. When talking about all the update and the amount of work we put into this is incredible. I read through a lot of it and it's like, ooh,
Yeah.
somebody spent a lot of hours on a keyboard. But when we talk about updating this, I understand the appeal of updating it like yearly. But to me, when you start changing the rules in the middle of class, things get really messy. So, an update every couple of years is probably sufficient. Because I don't think we'd want to be sitting here tonight going through all this, and we have 3 requests on the table, people wanting it to be, changed a little bit to accommodate them. Pretty soon, what's the point of having the rules and regs? Because you're gonna just adjust them every time someone makes a request. It kind of loses its point. So I think keeping track of the updates, like Chad suggested, keeping track of that, but seems like every couple of years would be often enough to go in and rewrite the rules.
So,
Little things that come up that are gonna make people uncomfortable, but that's the system.
So, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, I've actually already started a second list of changes because of some of the things that I missed in the first list after I had submitted this. You'd think I'd had enough, but then I just kept at it. So that week, I'm like, crap, I missed this. And there's only like 5 things on the list, but there are a couple things that, after I go with the commission next week, I'll mention to them next week. The couple of things, because, where I had it has to go to ISD first. I had it in 2 separate sections and I missed the one section. So I've since changed that, but I put that on my list of changes because it's not in the document online. And we didn't want, what we'd like to do is update that online document after next week's meeting. And hopefully that's kind of our final document. But I want to make sure it's right. And I get as many of those little things in as possible so we don't have these little changes, like Joey wants to change this or that, or, Mr. Smith wants to change this or that. And it's probably one of those things too with Dave North being our liaison for our department. We'll probably say, hey, we've brought this to our attention. Do you want to address this? And he'll either say yes or no. We'll tell him, go talk to the commissioners, an open public comment. It might be things like that we end up doing. If the commissioners are like, that's a big deal, we should change that. Like the C thing that came through to us. It's all probably gonna be situational, I would anticipate. But yeah, I'd be fine not doing it until every 2 years and just keeping a list. I'd be good with that.
I mean, I agree with your sentiment, for sure. And one of the reasons I voted against changing that C was because I didn't think it was good to change, like we were saying, willy-nilly sort of, something as important as that, to change it midstream for one issue. But I wonder if there isn't a process or something where, you have these small things or clarifications that need to be made that fall in certain criteria that we can do that annually. But then there are these bigger things that either require some vote by the BOCC or, they rise to a second level that's, much more restrictive, much more consideration is given to these things. And maybe that's done every 2 years, or maybe that's still done annually, but there's a very high threshold that must be met in order to change whatever needs to be changed. So I just wonder if that's something that could be thought through, or maybe it is, or that's something that the BOCC has brought up. But just having different criteria for small things versus big substantive changes.
And that's where I think the commissioners are kind of, they're our go-to on, is this a big deal or is it not? So yeah, the C is one thing, but look how many people were in the audience who wanted to address that C. To me, that's actually a big deal because that many people, I mean, you can see how many people are here tonight and who are concerned about this now. 8 pages worth they don't care about, but 1 C they did care about. So yes, if there were something like that, I think we would absolutely go to the commissioners and say, hey, we've received this, and we've received this many phone calls and this many people walking in because of this. Probably want to think about addressing it. So I think it's all going to be situational. But
One thing to clarify, something else to change.
yeah, I'm not gonna have you guys come to a meeting when I'm changing the word commerce to commercial because it was incorrectly put in the document, or Idaho to Wyoming. I still wouldn't even get you guys together for that one, but find another one.
Anything else for us tonight?
I'm good.
All right, well, my clock says 6:37. Chair would entertain a motion for end of the meeting dismissal.
Move to adjourn.
Adjourn, that's the word I was looking for. All right, everybody happy with that? 12:37. Thank you.